Well, welcome to the Meat Dudes. I'm Evan, and today we're joined by Dr. Ricardo Zanella out of Brazil. How are you doing, Dr. Ricardo?
Hello, Evan. I'm doing great. How about you?
Very good. Thank you. So I'm really excited today because you are a leading researcher and Wagyu specialist out of Brazil. You're also a board member of the Brazilian Wagyu Breeders Association, and it really gives you a front row seat onto how Wagyu is growing across Brazil and South America. And I'm really excited to learn more today because when I think of Wagyu, we all think of Japan, then we're starting to think of the United States and Australia and sometimes South Africa. And now I'm hearing a lot more in South America and Brazil. So I'm excited to learn a little bit more. But to start us off, let's give us a little bit of your background because you have a ton of Wagyu experience, and I'm excited to learn more from you. So I'll let you take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for this invitation. It's
Mhm,
great to talk about something that is my passion, especially
mhm,
talking about the Wagyu. That is something that I'm
mhm.
doing for the past 24 years here in Brazil.
Wow,
So
wow.
I'm a veterinarian. I did my
Mhm,
veterinary degree here at the University of Passo Fundo. Part of my
mhm,
veterinarian I did as a visiting assistant research when I went to Michigan State University. Then
mhm.
I finished my veterinary school at Washington State University,
Mhm.
where I worked with Dr. Jerry Reeves. That is the
Yes,
former
our good friend.
owner of the Bar R Cattle Company. And it is very
Yes.
interesting because our history with the Wagyu started a couple years before I went to WSU.
Mm,
In 2002, my
yeah.
brother Heraldo did a research experiment with Dr. Jerry Reeves in the north part of Brazil, testing immune castration in cattle, in bulls.
Mhm.
And during a barbecue that they were doing over there, they had this barbecue, and Jerry mentioned to Heraldo, the meat is kind of tough. Uh, why you guys don't breed Wagyu cattle here in Brazil? And then at that time, Heraldo said, yeah, we know about the Wagyu, but it's
Mhm.
difficult to have this breed here. And we have heard that there is a company in Brazil that is raising that, a company called Yakult, that was the one that imported the first Wagyu animals to Brazil. And
Yeah.
then Jerry looked at it out and said, so I'm going to be sending some semen for you.
Yeah.
And then couple months passed after they finished the experiment, and then my brother got a call from the Brazilian Ministry of Agriculture saying that a tank with semen from Wagyu animals were shipped from Dr. Jerry Reeves to our
Yeah.
farm here in Brazil. That they wanted to know where they want to deliver the semen. So that is how we started the to get in touch with the Wagyu cat. And
Wow. So
then
so why is it hard? Why did you think it was hard to raise Wagyu in Brazil? Why did you originally think that?
is not that it was hard. It was
Mhm.
hard to find Wagyu cattle. The thing is,
Okay.
Brazil is a such huge country, and we have lots of different breeds. We have
Mhm.
Angus, we have Nelore, that is the cattle that's most raised in Brazil, Hereford, Menenju,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Cimental, Charolais, so, and Senepal, and then there's going to be another breed to be competing.
Yeah.
So that was the hard part. There's going to be another breed to be competing into this huge market
Mm, okay.
of cattle.
Oh wow. Okay. So what was your first experience with actually tasting Wagyu?
Oh, okay. So my first experience tasting Wagyu
Mhm.
was at Bar R Cattle Company with Jerry
Okay.
in their farm
Wow.
in Pullman, Washington. That was my first experience tasting Wagyu beef, and it was amazing.
That's a good first experience.
Yeah, it was
That
a great. So I had my first experience high extender, so
yeah.
it was tough to compete with that.
Yeah, what did you think? Did you guys just grill up some steaks or what? What did you think when you first had it?
Yeah, we grilled some steaks. It
Yeah.
was, I don't remember what was the occasion, but we had a couple steaks. If I'm not wrong, I think it might have been Arlie's graduation
Oh,
that we had those steaks or something around that time. So
wow. That's
it was a great celebration. And then in
yeah.
2003, I started doing artificial insemination in my cows here in the south. And
Mhm.
then we tested the Wagyu in different cattle breeds at that time. We tested into Nelore, Angus, Hereford, Normand cattle,
Mhm.
Cherolees, to see which one was going to be the best result and the best crossing
Yeah.
because to have a full blood Wagyu was kind of hard to have, very expensive, since it only had one company raising
Mhm.
Wagyu cattle.
Mhm.
And then we did those crossing, and then we found out that all the crosses were good, improved the meat quality. But at that
Really?
time, the best matching was with Angus cattle. Wagyu with Angus cattle was amazing.
Okay. Why
So
do you think that
that
is?
was
Is it
in
just because
2003. Then in 2003,
yeah.
we had our first calves being born.
Uh-huh.
And then we start crossing them. We got semen from Yakult. We bought also embryos from
Mhm.
Yakult. And then we started our herd of Wagyu cattle here in the south of Brazil.
So you are you currently was that so that's a F1 cross? Would that be considered a F1 cross?
Yes, so we did the F1 cross, then we did F2,
Yep.
F3. Now we have a herd of full blood animals,
Okay.
and we have a herd of purebred animals
Really? Oh,
here in our state. And the
wow.
background of the breed came from Jerry. And
Yeah.
one thing that we're very proud and very happy is that most of the genetics that we are using in our herd, it came from Bar R. And we are
Wow.
still doing that. Last year, we did importation of semen from several bulls that Jerry selected that were good and different
Mhm.
from other breeds. That's something that was not good in the United States for other breeds. They shipped to Brazil. Jerry used to select the best bulls that he had in the United States and ship semen to us. So,
Really?
yeah,
Wow. Man, so you're getting some good stuff for sure, man. That's great.
yeah.
I love it. Well, so for people for the people that don't know, what does the Wagyu industry actually look like in Brazil right now?
Okay. So the Wagyu industry here in Brazil is still very small
Mhm.
compared with the amount of cattle that we have.
Yeah.
If you think about Wagyu cattle population in Brazil, Brazil is the largest cattle producer. So we have more than 200 million heads of cattle here in Brazil. The Wagyu is just a little dot of that. In Brazil, we have around 20,000 cattle, 20 head of cattle of Wagyu.
Okay.
So it's very tiny. And that
Yeah.
makes it to be very special
Yeah.
because since we have a small offer of the product, we can have higher price into the final product.
Hmm.
And that's something very impressive because we are seeing an increase in the number of Wagyu cattle producers in Brazil in the last 10, 15 years. Of course,
Yeah.
the increase is not as huge as we see in other breeds, but we are
Yep.
seeing an increase in the number of animals being raised and also into the quality of the meat that we are producing. So that's
Yeah.
something very nice about the Wagyu cattle here in Brazil.
Yeah. So, like you said, Brazil's already one of the biggest beef producers in the whole world. So why do you choose Wagyu? How does Wagyu going to fit in Brazil?
So that's a great question. Most of the cattle herd that you have, the cattle breed that you have here in Brazil, is the Nelore cattle, and Nelore cattle are known to have very good resistance to parasites, thermotolerant animals, and they do great. However, we are seeing now that the consumers, they don't want quantity, they want quality of meat, and
Or
that's
quality?
why the Wagyu is gonna fit to produce high
Yeah.
quality meat. Doesn't matter what kind of cross you're doing with the Wagyu, you're gonna see an
Yeah.
increase, an improvement into the meat quality. You can cross
Yeah.
with Nelore, you're gonna improve the meat quality, marbling of the animals is you're gonna have a very good heterosis, and that's going to be seen into the meat, the marbling into the meat. But with
Yeah.
that, we have a big challenge. Uh,
What?
Different than the United States and other countries, we don't have snow into the winter. So
Mm,
most of the cattle fed here in Brazil are fed in a type of grass-fed system.
yeah.
All the
Okay.
animals they're raised in uh, eating grass. You know what I call the green cattle or the green meat.
Mm.
And we
That's good.
know
Yeah.
that the Wagyu cattle, uh, we need to have a very specific nutrition for them to acquire higher marbling scores. So that's
Yeah.
going to be a little challenging yet. We
Hmm.
try to select some animals that they're going to do well into grass fed to produce marbling.
Yeah.
However, we were not able to get more than marbling score above 5
Okay.
with
And
grass fed.
what is the what is the marbling score right now? What marbling metrics do you guys use in Brazil?
So we use the same, I think the same that you have in the United States that goes
The
until
BMS?
12. Until
Yeah, the
12,
BMS scale.
yeah,
Okay.
that
Yeah.
BMS scale. But right now at the association, we bought image camera
Hmm.
that slaughter the animal, and then you can
Yeah.
take a photo into the ribeye between the 12 and 13 ribeye
Yep.
bone,
Good. Yeah.
and that is going to give a precise information of the marbling score BMS that you're going to have.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's such a small industry so far in Brazil that you're really
Yeah,
looking for the high marbling, which is a little
exactly.
bit
And
different. Well, it's different from the US a little bit. Like we still want that high marbling, but there's a lot of like the F1 cross, which is like that prime plus, which is better than prime, of course. But not necessarily not everyone's reaching for the most marbling. But since it's so
yeah,
small in Brazil, it seems like that's pretty much what you're looking for because that's what people want. They want to like celebrate with that. Is there a certain demographic in Brazil that loves that is looking for that?
yeah. So one thing very interesting is that here in Brazil, most of the animals that are going to slaughter are full blood animals,
Okay.
because on those animals we have a very straight traceability. because you
Okay.
have
Yeah.
the DNA test into the animal, so you know who are the parents. So we have, since it's a full blood animal, we know how the animal was grown and how the animal was fed during the whole
Mhm.
time.
Yep.
Different that you have a crossbred animal, that have several producers just doing AI with the Wagyu semen in different cattle, and that you
Hmm.
don't have some kind of standard into the meat. You can have good animals, but also not as good animals. So
Yep.
that's a little bit challenging. So right now, the biggest Wagyu market that we have here in Brazil is from full blood animals, and
Yeah.
just we know that we have higher number of crosses of Wagyu,
Hmm.
but we have very high variation among the marbling results. For example,
Yeah.
the slaughtering of the animals into these last years, we got. Let me get the results that we got. This was given by the Wagyu Association yesterday. So the average marbling into the full blood animals this year, 2025, was 6. The
That's is it a
marbling score between the full blood animals. And the
that's a BMS
crosses,
six?
BMS
The,
exactly, was between 3 and 4. So we see that
okay.
the full blood animals, we have, of course, we have all the genetic composition of the animal that's going to be very impressive and important for the expression of that phenotype. But
Yeah.
we also have a better care of the animals since the cattle was pregnant until the animal is ready to go to slaughter. And at the
Mhm.
crosses, generally the producer said, "Oh, I want to start raising Wagyu by semen," and doesn't select the best animals or the best genetics. They just select what they have, the industry have, and then they
Okay.
inseminate cattle, and then they try to produce the crosses as the same way they produce the regular cattle. And you
Okay.
know that doesn't work that way.
Yeah. So what role does the Brazilian Wagyu Breeders Association play with this whole with the Wagyu cattle?
Okay, so that's good. I started into the Brazilian Wagyu Association, I think 6 years ago. I'm being
Okay.
board member, and
Yeah.
this year is going to finish my participation into the Wagyu Association here in Brazil. And we might going to try to compete to go for 3 more years, but we're still thinking yet. But
Okay.
we are focusing in two big things.
Hmm.
The first one is marketing.
Hmm.
We know that we need to have a very strong marketing to expand a breed or expand a product. So we are focusing a lot into the marketing. And the
Yeah.
second big advantage or work that we did, we try to get all the information that we had into the animals that were based on paperwork. Now we have everything digitalized. So
Yeah. Right.
we put everything into the computer. So
Hmm.
no paperwork anymore. So we have a very precise information of each animal. So each animal that was born, it need to be DNA verified for parents.
Yep.
We need to put when you AI the cattle, or when you did the embryo transfer, which was the recipient, the breed of the recipient, the weight of the animal when it was born, the time of the gestation. So we have informatized all this information. So
Yeah.
this was a big advantage that we did. And the
That's
third big thing that we did, we started a genomic selection program here in
what's
Brazil.
okay.
So since we have all the pedigree of the animals,
Hmm.
we have the phenotype of the animals, And then we have the genotype now of the animals. We are using a SNP platform from Illumina with 100,000 markers, SNPs, those single nucleotide polymorphists. And we built our own genomic program here in Brazil. And we know the precise phenotype of each animal because all the slaughter of the Wagyu cattle here in Brazil, it need to be followed by a inspector from the association. Currently
Every
here in
slaughter.
Brazil we have, at the slaughter, exactly. Currently here in Brazil we have 18 meat inspectors that they need to go to your farm when the animal is born, when you are gonna do the registration of the animal. They need to look at the animal, see if it is on the standards of the Wagyu. Sometimes the animal doesn't have the right weight or have some kind of issue. That animal, it doesn't go as a full blood, and then you certify the animal to be for meat production. So that increase a lot our the quality of our animals. And then once the animal go to slaughter, the inspector need to follow the slaughter. And once the animal is slaughtered, it need to check the meat. So it's going to do the cut, take the photo 24 hours after the slaughter, and then you're going to have the information regarding the BMS of that specific carcass. Of course, the IMAJ camera that we bought a couple of years ago. Before that, we are doing only visual inspection. But all this visual inspection was conducted by an inspector from the Wagyu Association. So we have a very good accuracy into the image or into the quality of the animals that are being slaughtered.
Wow. So
those three were the important achievements that we had. The first one, marketing. The second one is to digitalize all the system. And the third, the genomic selection program. Into this marketing, last year, a couple years ago, we got from the state of Rio Grande do Sul a piece of land into the Expo Inter. Expo Inter is one of the largest stock shows into the America. And we got from the state government a piece of land to build a house for the Wagyu Association. And last year, we were able to build that house. So now we have a space to invite producers, invite consumers to go talk during the show and to know more about the breed and whatnot. So that's something very, very important that we did. So now we have presence into this stock show in the south of Brazil.
That's great. And I think, marketing, like you said, is such an enormous thing that we all need to do, especially in the Wagyu industry. So, because we always talk about education, right? We need to educate the consumer. So what is somebody in Brazil, when you say the word Wagyu, what comes to their head first? Like what do most people think?
When you talk about the Wagyu, the first thing that people are going to say, ooh, that expensive meat. That expensive meat.
Yep.
Of course, the meat is not cheap, but we need to understand why the meat is expensive. It's not only a meat. We have a whole process behind that to produce that specific product. So that's make the Wagyu value. That's what's going to make value to the Wagyu meat. It's not only meat, but the first thing that's going to come to the consumers is going to be that, oh wow, the expensive meat. So that's something very funny that happened this week. We brought some young students to visit the veterinary school where I'm research faculty here in Passo Fundo, the University of Passo Fundo. And then we are walking by the field where we have the animals. And last year, I donated one Wagyu steer to the university for them to do some studies for my genetic classes, so I can explain to the students the difference between the Wagyu, Hereford, the specific
Yeah.
characteristics. And then we were walking by, and then one student said, "Oh, that's very strange animal. It's different than the other one." So I said, is an Wagyu animal. So wow, the university has an Wagyu animal here. So yeah, it was a donation from a producer. Wow, the producer must have tons of money to donate a Wagyu cattle to the university. So it's just quiet. So actually,
Yeah.
it's not as expensive when it was young. It's the whole process to produce that animal that makes the difference. But when I talked about the
Yeah.
Wagyu, we did an experiment with one of my students, Caroline Galas, to try to understand what is the understanding of the population of the Wagyu cattle. Most of the people know about the Wagyu, and they know it's an
Yeah.
expensive meat, and they are also willing to try the meat if they could. Of course,
Yeah.
paying until 3 times more than the regular meat is going to cost. So,
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, we talk about that a lot. Of course, it's going to be more expensive than the conventional beef because there's more standards. It's a better product. It's better quality. But we always try to also mention that there's more cuts to the cow than just the ribeye. So if you go out and buy a full blood ribeye, you're probably going to be spending a lot of money. But if you go out and you find some other cuts like the skirt steak and the Denvers and the Bovettes, or what are some other like cuts that on the animal that you enjoy or that you talk about that are maybe a little bit more affordable than just going out and buying the ribeye?
okay, yeah. So the ribeye is one of the best cuts. That's for sure. But
Mhm.
here in Brazil,
Totally.
the consumers, they really like picanha. Picanha, picanha. They're really, wow, picanha.
Picanha.
But why picanha?
Yeah.
As I mentioned before, most of the meat here in Brazil is from Nelore cattle. And Nelore
Mhm.
cattle are known to not have good quality meat. So picanha is going to be one of the best cuts that they're going to have.
Yeah.
Tender and good to taste to do barbecue. So for my point of view, I really like the cuts into the shoulder.
Hmm.
That's one of my favorite cuts because you're gonna have high marbling, very affordable price, and good
Yeah.
taste. So it's gonna be a great experience. So for me, I really like the cuts into the shoulder of the animal, and of course,
Yeah.
we brisket. It's amazing if you know how to prepare that cut.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's very good. The ribs, the Wagyu ribs here in Brazil, people don't like too much to eat the ribs because it's too much
Really?
fat. So
Mm.
generally, they like to use the meat and the fat from the ribs to produce hamburgers. So they can
Really?
mix that meat and that product into the meat to
That's
produce high quality hamburgers.
wow, that's different. Yeah, that rib meat. I mean, a lot of that rib meat up here, smoke and even grill,
Exactly.
sear. But yeah, that's interesting. Isn't there a large demographic of Japanese people in Brazil? Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So if you think about Brazil, Brazil is a huge country.
Yeah.
And in São Paulo, we have the largest Japanese population outside of Japan.
Wow.
So most of the meat produced in Brazil is consumed into São Paulo because it's the
Really?
largest Wagyu Japanese population into Brazil. So that's correct. We have a
Wow.
very strong Japanese community here in
Mhm.
Brazil. And that is true that last year we submitted a project with one of my students to YAICA. That is a Japanese type of association, and that project was accepted. And one of my students from the vet school spent 8 months into Japan, into the Yamaguchi University, learning
Oh,
everything how to produce high quality Wagyu meat.
wow.
So it was great. This kind of proximity that we have. So
Yeah, yeah. That's cool. So, I want to get back a little bit to the genetics because you talked about Bar R in
mhm.
starting off the genetics down there. Do you guys get genetics anywhere else? Have you like dabbled in Australia or like looked into anything there, or just from Bar R or just from the United States? Where does most of
so
your genetics
so
come from?
we Agropecuária Zanella, that is the farm that is from me and my brother.
Uh-huh.
We use mainly bar R genetics. But of
Yeah.
course, sometimes we try to introduce semen from, especially from Australia.
Yeah.
Here in Brazil, most of the genetics that came to Brazil came from United States,
Okay.
Australia, and Canada, and
And
a
Canada.
little bit from Europe, but
Okay.
most from Australia and United States.
Yeah.
Uh, from Japan, uh, a little bit came from Japan, like in early 1992, 1994, when it
Hmm.
was the market was still open. So the Takeda Shogo, there
Takeda.
was
Yeah.
one person. It had a very good proximity with the people from Yakult, so that they imported some Wagyu genetics from Japan to Brazil. But I think it didn't came straight. It went first to the United States, and then from
Okay.
United States came to Brazil.
Wow. Okay. You know, Brazil is such a large country. There's probably different climates all over the country. Are there better places to raise Wagyu cattle? Like
Yeah.
is there going to be fresh grasses all the time in some regions and other regions going to be a little bit, colder? I mean, is there, what
Yeah.
are the different regions for
So yeah,
raising
Brazil
these
is
cattle?
huge. So
Yeah.
we have different climates in different
Hmm.
parts of the states. Brazil is we have a different latitudes, so
Yeah.
that makes very interesting. We
Yeah.
have Wagyu cattle in Brazil in 18 states from the Brazil.
Okay.
So we
Really?
have pretty much Wagyu in all the states. Uh, I'm gonna get the states where we have Wagyu. So we have
Yeah.
Wagyu into Acre, Bahia, Ceará, Brasília, Goiás, Minas Gerais, Mato Grosso do Sul, Paraná, Rio de Janeiro, Rio Grande do Norte, Roraima, Rio Grande do Sul, Santa Catarina, and São Paulo. So we have pretty much Brazil everywhere. In my point
Really?
of view, the
Mhm.
best states to raise Wagyu cattle are the states in the south of Brazil: Santa
Why is that?
Catarina, Paraná, and Rio Grande do Sul. For a simple reason. In
Yeah.
those three states in the last part of Brazil, during the winter, we have uh, cold weather. And
Mhm.
cold weather, it's going to help for you to have a parasite control. And in those
Mm.
three last states of Brazil is the places where you have most of the European cattle being raised here. And we know that similarity between the Wagyu and European breeds. So people already know how to raise those animals. And
Yeah.
when you go to north of Brazil, you're gonna see more of Indicus cattle like Nelore, Brahma, Guzerá, other type of Indicine type of cattle. And we know that the Wagyu, when it was born, it's going to need to have some specific care to survive. And different than the
Yeah.
Nelore, that when the cow drops a Nelore calf, it just runs. So it's very different. So, in my point
Yeah.
of view, the south of Brazil is the best place to raise Wagyu and the best place for you to make crosses, because you're going to have, since you have most
Well,
of the European cattle, you're going to have the best results into the carcass and the meat quality of those animals.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So you're using genetics, from Bar R, from the United States, but the terroir is going to be completely different in Brazil than it is in the United States. So if you're
Yeah.
looking at an American Wagyu and Brazil Wagyu, what are some similarities and some differences that you're going to see between those steaks, like a
Oh,
ribeye?
so into the steaks, that's something very interesting. The taste of the meat into the United States becomes completely different than the taste of the meat here in
Yeah.
Brazil. And I believe that is because, one, the influence of the grass into the feeding of those animals, because even using different type of uh, uh, grazing systems here in Brazil or finishing systems, uh,
Yeah.
we have the animals, the Wagyu animals, eating grass until 12, 13, or there are farms that use grass until 18 months. And they're just going to
Okay.
close the animals for the confinement into the last part of this period. So the taste of the
Okay.
meat is very different. Uh,
Yeah.
between if you see the marbling scores into the United States, we are going to be more refined type of marbling into the meat, and that's something that
Mm.
now we are looking for here into Brazil. We put marbling, but now we are trying to refine that marbling. We don't want that very not straight line of fat. So
Yeah.
that's
You want
what we
like a
are
spider
looking.
web?
We are looking for. Yeah,
Yeah. Like
exactly, like a spider web.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what we're looking
So
for.
that's one
Okay.
of that's those are some of the difference that we see. However, I was never able to put side by side a Wagyu steak from the United States and a Wagyu steak from Brazil. That was going to be a great comparison. Maybe you need to do that. Maybe let's challenge
Yeah.
Arlie and Jerry to bring some steaks to Brazil, and that's going to do that comparison here.
Yes, we need to do that. That would be really cool because
That's going to be very
we,
good.
Tyler and I, when Tyler and I are like cooking Wagyu, we always try to notice the differences, the nuances. And in the United States, there's major differences in cooking a steak from one state to another state
Yeah.
because of how it's raised and the grass
Mhm.
that it's used or how it's fed. So it would be really interesting to also see that because to me, Australian Wagyu tastes different because you can taste the terroir, than
Exactly.
American Wagyu. So I
Mhm.
mean, it's where it's raised. Right? It's the climate and the
Yeah.
grass, and the grass is going to be different in
Yeah,
the
I
southern
completely
hemisphere.
agree. I'm
Yeah.
I'm talking with my wife and my kids for us to move our animals from where we have right now our farm
Mhm.
to near to the sea. So then we're going to have a
Mm.
completely different type of terroir, the way that the animals going to be raised. So we are thinking to do this change in the near future. So let's see if it's going to work.
Wow, I like it. How would you describe the flavor of Wagyu in Brazil? Of your Wagyu?
So that's very interesting because taste is completely unique from each person. The way that I describe the
Totally is.
Wagyu meat is that piece of meat when you put into your mouth and it's gonna melt. That's how I describe that flavor. And every time
Yeah.
that I taste the Wagyu, it's gonna be a completely different experience. That's something very interesting. Every time is a completely unique experience, and that's something that is hard into the Wagyu because since you have different type of animals, different types of uh, ways that you raise the Wagyu, and different cuts also. Every time is a different experience. So the best way that I like to do is grilled into a
Okay.
barbecue with a wood fire. The wood fire is
Wood.
way better than charcoal for to have to make the Wagyu. So that's the best, and you cannot uh, uh, have a steak well done. It needs to be medium rare, so that you
You
can
like a medium?
really taste and feel the flavor of the meat.
Yeah. So if you're grilling over wood, is there a certain level you raise it up to? I mean, because you got to watch it because the fat's gonna melt,
Yeah,
right? So you
yeah.
can't
If
just leave it
so,
on
yeah.
there, right?
So I use wood, but then I start the fire 1 hour and a half prior to have the meat. Then I have
Really?
very hot, and then I put the steak. We cannot have flames because when
Yes.
the meat start cooking, it's gonna start melting, and that's gonna just burn everything, and that's bad. So we
Yeah.
need to start.
Yes.
So uh, uh, to cook Wagyu meat is therapeutic. You need to have time, you need to have patience. So you need to have a good
Mhm.
whiskey and a good cigar.
I like that. Oh, what a night. Now that sounds good. Yeah, you're right though. It is very difficult. So we always tell people to, if you're first cooking Wagyu, to cook it in a pan, like a cast iron pan, just to
Mhm.
keep it easy. But when you kind of graduate to that next level, I love to cook it on a grill because I
Yeah,
love that flavor, that wood, that smoky flavor, and that little bit of that
yeah,
char that it brings. But you're right, you have to have total patience because you can't just put it on there and, like, say, close it up and turn around and
yeah.
watch a baseball game.
And
You
the
got to
other
watch
thing,
it, move it. You
and the other
can't.
thing that I learned, most of the Wagyu meat sold here in Brazil, they're frozen. It's frozen meat, and
Uh-huh.
you need to have patience to thaw the meat. You cannot just take the
Yes.
meat right away and put
Yeah.
on the top of the sink to melt. No, you need to take
Yeah.
from the freezer, put inside of the fridge, and take at least 24 to 48 hours before you're going to cook that meat. If you take it straight from the freezer and
Okay.
try to do a fast melt, you're going to destroy the meat. So that's patience and
Yeah.
patience. You need to plan to have the good and perfect Wagyu barbecue.
I like that. Okay. Now I like that. What are your thoughts on the health benefits of Wagyu? Because there are a lot of studies out there. And I feel like I just talked to somebody, Booth Creek Dave. He's at Booth Creek Wagyu in the United States, and he was like, "I want there to be one. I want us to put all these studies together and just make it super clear." So where do you fall on that? Is Wagyu healthy? How healthy is it? What can it
Okay,
do for you?
so yeah, exactly. There's a bunch of different studies showing the health benefits, uh, high levels of monosaturated fat acids. That's going to be healthy fat, omega 6, omega 3. So those are very good properties of the Wagyu meat. But I have a personal experience that for me was amazing. So every year
Really?
I go to a cardiologist. And 2 years ago, I switched the cardiologist. And then I started going to this cardiologist in our town. And then the first time that I went there, she gave this huge list of exams, blood exams for me to do. I did all the blood exams and I took to her. And then she started to reading the exam, the results, and she looked at me and said, "Wow, you have such great blood data and information. You must eat a lot of fish." So I said, "No, I don't eat fish. I eat Wagyu meat." She said, "What?" She said, I raise Wagyu,
Yeah.
so we just eat Wagyu meat into our house. She said, "Wow, I need to start saying that for my patients to start eating more Wagyu because we're gonna have very health benefits." I saw my blood exams, but I didn't give any kind of good attention. She said, "Oh, your cholesterol, it's amazing. It's amazing."
Really?
So, and the Wagyu, it's a lot of fat. So there's something that is unique about the Wagyu meat. And if you start looking into the longevity, the Japanese people, they have a very high longevity. Of course, they eat a lot of fish, but they eat also a lot of Wagyu. And most of the meat that you have in Japan is the Wagyu meat. of course, with crosses between other animals. But that I experienced that with my cardiologist because I have problems with a genetic problem with high blood pressure, and then I need to
Yeah.
do this verification every year. And the last 2 years, it was very good. And she said
Yeah.
that's probably regarding to nutrition. Of course, I try to do some exercise also, but it's difficult. But most is associated with the nutrition.
Yeah, no, nutrition's huge, and yeah, there, so many ranchers and experts that I talk to in the Wagyu industry. I mean, everyone has that same story. It's just amazing, and I wish we could just document it all even more and just really get it
Yeah,
out there because I
yeah.
mean, you can
You
tell if you go
gave
out.
me a yeah. You gave me a good idea. I'm gonna
Yeah.
give this task to one of my students for them to get
Hmm.
all the information that they have about the health benefits regarding the meat into the wagyu and put in one paper. I'm gonna do that.
Yes.
I have 19 students working under my mentoring here at the university. So I'm gonna put one of the students just look into that.
Let's do that, and then fill in the gaps where people can make
Yeah,
false wrong claims and things. Let's do it. Let's clean it up because there's
yeah,
so
yeah.
many of these little studies that I hear about all the time. But still, like I
Mhm.
said, if you walk down to any major city and talk to 1,000 people and you say Wagyu beef is healthy for you, like 99% of them are going to laugh at you. So let's
Exactly.
like do that. I love that
Yeah.
idea. Dave from Booth Creek Wagyu is going to be happy about that. That's awesome. So I wanted to ask you this, what do you think most countries get wrong when trying to build a new Wagyu program?
So this I can take the experience from what we saw here in Brazil.
Mhm.
Uh, People know about the quality of the wagyu, and they also know about the price,
Mhm.
and that makes very attractive to start raising wagyu. However, producers they have no clue how to raise the animals, and that can be a huge disaster. We saw
Yeah.
several new producers that wanted to start raising wagyu, and they don't have any idea that the pregnant cattle they need to have a specific nutrition to have
Mhm.
marbling into their offspring, and then they
Yeah.
raise the wagyu. They don't give a special nutrition to the animal. They don't do a special care. They don't castrate the animals into the right timing, and then they want to slaughter the animal at 450 kilograms. That's the average weight that they slaughter Angus cattle or other cattle breeds here in Brazil. And then they're not going to have marbling. And then they're going to say, oh, that doesn't work. So,
Yeah.
in my point of view, the biggest problem is the lack of information in how to raise the Wagyu cattle. That's the most important point. So, I think uh, we need to have a very strong type of consulting activities between veterinarians and people that know about the Wagyu to support those people, because the worst thing that can happen is a person that is very happy, that has lots of energy to put into a specific project, and then into the end is not going to work and is going to get frustrated. So that's
Yeah.
something that's very important, that the Wagyu Association, if someone wants to start to having raising Wagyu, go first to a Wagyu Association and ask, so tell me what I need to know to not get disappointed and to have success into that. So,
Yeah.
and
I
the
agree.
phenotype is a combination between genetics and the environment. Doesn't matter if
Uh-huh.
you have the best genetics, but if you don't give the environment, if you don't give them, if you don't give the nutrition, if you don't have the right management conditions to the animals, they are not going to express the margin. That's the most impressive characteristic that you have into the Wagyu.
So if you had to break it down by percentage of genetics and then environment to get the best marbling, what do you think that would be? What would that breakdown
So
be?
marbling is a characteristic with low to moderate heritability. So what that means that you have a certain percentage that the genetics can explain the marbling. So
Mhm.
it's going to be a combination. Of course, the most important part is going to be the environment. But sometimes you have the right environment, the right nutrition, but the animal is not going to express because it's missing that part. If
Mm.
you're going to break, I can say around 35, 40% of the margin comes from genetics, and the rest is going to be environment.
Interesting. Yeah. I ask a lot of people that, and I kind of get an answer all over the place. That's interesting, though. You think it's more
Yeah.
of the environment because it's got to have, I mean, the Wagyu genetics have, you're starting from a higher floor when you start with Wagyu anyway, because you have that, those genetics that create great intermuscular marbling. So,
Mhm.
but you're saying that you think it's about 40% genetics, 60% environment. Really? Yeah.
Yeah,
Environment.
something like that. Because it doesn't
Wow.
matter if you have the best environment, the best genetics, but if you don't give the environment, then it's not going to
Yeah.
express. And the
Mm.
opposite is also true.
Of course, yeah. Well, why do you think that there is kind of like a lack of information in the Wagyu industry? I understand that it's a young industry, but why do you think that there's not more veterinarians and more scientists that are like starting to study this? It just seems like it's when you say Wagyu is maybe healthy or it has, great benefits, people kind of just laugh. So why don't you think there is more people that are kind of gathering around and fighting for this? Is it just a lack of knowledge
Yeah,
about the animal itself, or is there something weird about it? People just don't think it's true and they think it's like it's a conspiracy, or
yeah.
what is
That's
this all
that's
about?
that's a great question, and you can stay here talking for several hours
I
regarding
know.
this point.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, my understanding is couple things. First is it's a small population. If you get all the Wagyu in the whole world, it's a small population.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, true.
that's not too important.
Yeah.
People want to see things that's gonna have a high impact. So to have a high
Mhm.
impact, it need to be things or breeds that's gonna be high number of animals. The
Yeah.
other thing that I see here in Brazil, uh, the science is getting more and more very competitive.
Okay.
And being more and more competitive, researchers, they need to put grants into where they think they're going to be able to get money. For example,
Mhm.
let's do a research to try to do a genetic engineering animal that's going to be more tolerant for that specific region. Let's do
Yeah.
that because
Yeah.
that's something that's going to bring a huge economic impact to the society. If you think
Yeah.
about the Wagyu cattle, we know that the meat is very expensive. That's not going to be affordable for the whole population. So that's going to create some niches. So, and
Mhm.
that's going to create some restrictions. So, why I'm going to put in money to do a project to understand more about the quality of the meat if that meat is going to be consumed for 1% of the population and even less than that? So I think
Yeah.
people wanting to know more about things that's going to have a high impact into the society and things that are going to be more affordable to more people to consume. I think that's the biggest issue that I see
Totally.
why not too much research is being conducted into that.
Yeah, and I understand that too, right? I mean, you got to go where the money is, and it may not be the biggest economic impact, but I also am looking at this beef that tastes better, that could be healthier for you, and even if it's F1 cross, which isn't even going to be that much more expensive than conventional beef in a lot of countries, that's where I'm like, why isn't there just more
So
Wagyu genetics in beef?
I just need 1 minute. 1 minute.
Oh yeah.
I'll be back. Can you just
Oh
pause?
okay.
I just need 1 minute.
Yeah, yeah. We'll pause for
Okay.
a second. Yeah, we'll pause. Totally.
Okay. I'm back.
Well, let me hop back into it. So we were kind of just talking about why maybe there's not a lot of Wagyu information out there, and there's not a ton of scientists and veterinarians that are kind of jumping on this because there's probably not a big economic impact because it's such a small
Yeah,
amount of Wagyu. But like I understand that, but I'm just thinking like this, like if you look at a steak and you understand that this steak looks better than conventional beef, it tastes better, it has health benefits to it, and it's maybe like an F1 cross, maybe it's 25% more expensive. Like I'm taking that beef all the time. Like if I'm looking at chips, like I'm going to get some chips, and one of them is regular chips and the other one has health benefits and tastes better and is 25% more expensive, I'm probably buying those ones every single time. So that's why I understand that it's such a small percentage, but gosh, the amount of growth it could have if this really got out, that it really does have health benefits to it and it tastes so freaking good. I just don't know how, people aren't
yeah,
jumping on this going, you know what, we should
you,
kind of figure this out.
yeah. We can make a comparison between organic producers, organic vegetables, and
Yeah, true.
we know that it has some better benefits when compared with the
Yeah,
regular vegetables,
yeah.
but it's high is going to cost more,
Hmm.
and there are people that are going to buy that. But if you
Yeah,
think the average people, they're not going to be able to buy. So
yeah.
I don't.
Not everybody.
I agree with you. If
Yeah,
people they have condition to pay more for a specific type of product that with better health benefits, I don't have no idea that that's true.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I mean, not everyone's going to be able to spring for it by any means. I'm not saying that, but if we're focusing on the health benefits and the better taste and the better quality, and it's and we're talking about an F1 cross, like the full blood is going to be in its own range. Everybody, that's going to be for a little bit more expensive, and people are going to celebrate with that, or really beef lovers are going to really enjoy that. But that's why I'm kind of focused on the F1 cross, thinking it's more expensive, but it's not a ton more expensive because beef is expensive in general. And so that's why I think if we get these health benefits really on the same page, I think it's just going to jump this industry like
Yeah,
wildfire.
I
Yeah,
agree. I agree with you. So yeah.
I love it. Well, let's see. So, do you see more of like a global collaboration between Wagyu producers, kind of, from all over the world? Like, are you talking to people from South Africa and Australia and Japan and Europe and United States, or who are you talking to?
So we talked to people from Japan,
Hmm.
but they are very closed into
Yep.
their own space,
Yep.
and they their idea is that the rest of the world stole
So,
their
yeah.
goat,
Yeah.
so that
Hmm.
there's something that is make them very not wanting to open doors anymore. But here in Brazil, we talk a lot with producers from United States. We are talking a lot with producers from Australia. Uh, we think uh, right now Australia they have a very good genomic program for
Hmm.
selection to their animals. And we believe that the best thing that can happen is specific the improvement that you can get. Once you have more collaboration with more people working together, we're going to have, uh, I, I, I'm, I don't have any doubt that the
Yeah.
Wagyu breed is going to grow too much. The problem is each country is working isolated. We
Yeah.
have a World Wagyu Consortium. I'm part of that. I'm representing Brazil into that, but we need to have more collaboration. The problem
Yeah.
is each one thinks that what they have is more important than from what the other have,
Yeah.
and they need to collaborate. They need to have a big umbrella. What you say? A big umbrella,
Yeah.
and that big umbrella can help the rest to improve. So that's something very very important. So
Yeah. No, I agree.
I agree. We need to have collaboration. Uh,
Yeah.
one work for X. If you have 10 working together, we're going to have 10X.
Yeah. Right.
There's
I like
something
that.
that one of my professors, they use this expression that is I like a lot to use. If you want to go faster, you go alone. But if
Yeah.
you want to reach longer goals, you need to
Go
have
together.
this type of collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to go together. Exactly. No,
Exactly.
I like that. So on that tip, where do you see Wagyu in Brazil over like the next 5 to 10 years? And Wagyu in South America too. It's not just in Brazil, correct? It's you were talking about some
Yeah.
other places that it's being grown.
Yeah, so the Wagyu, we are seeing a big movement into Paraguay, Uruguay, and Argentina here in South America, Ecuador, Bolivia also.
Okay.
So Colombia also are seeing some movement also into
Wow.
to have Wagyu animals. I
Yeah.
see in the next few years the growing amount of Wagyu animals into Brazil. And that's
Mhm.
something very important because we see this external market a huge opportunity to Brazil to start exporting meat. That's amazing.
Yeah.
However, we don't have meat for the internal market. So I see in the next 5 and 10 years a greater opportunity to expand the Wagyu market here in Brazil and
Yeah.
in
Where
South America countries. So
and
I
where
have no
where would you
doubt
be?
about that.
Yeah. Where do you think you would be exporting a lot of this Wagyu?
Uh, Japan is a good opportunity. We had some Japanese people interested into importing Wagyu meat from Brazil. The European market is also something very attractive
Yeah.
for us, and some islands. So
Oh,
that's
cool.
that's also very
Yeah.
very interesting. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. I like that. I like it. Well, if you were gonna convince someone, or just let's say someone has never had Wagyu before, what's something that you tell them about Wagyu to convince them to try it, to go for the Wagyu instead of the conventional beef?
So the first thing that I generally do, I invited people to have a barbecue in my house,
Mm, nice.
and
That's a good
that
way.
sells for its own.
Yeah,
So
it's over.
that's something very, 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 very interesting.
Yeah.
And of course, one thing that we have that is different from other people do is we have a history behind each animal, and
Mm,
people are interested about histories,
yeah.
and that's how we sell our animals. I for each animal that we have in our farm, from animals that are produced by embryo transfer, we produce those animals. We do the inseminations, we collect the embryos. My wife is an embryologist. She looks into the scope, get the right embryo, put inside of a straw, give back to me. I put inside of the cow. So each animal that we have into our farm, it have a history. So and
Wow.
that's how we do. We are small farmers. We don't
Yeah.
have a huge amount of animals. So what we do with love. And when we do
Yeah.
things with love, we have passion involved with that. And that's how we try to sell our animals. People come, talk, they want to visit, and in the end, they always buy one, two, or three animals from our property.
Yeah, knowing where your meat comes from is so important, and the transparency that you guys have built in Brazil for Wagyu is awesome. I mean, it's incredible. So, I
Yeah.
mean, kudos for that, because that's really so important when you're sharing this, and when people are buying the meat, they can actually trace it back to the original animals. I mean, that means a lot, and it's the transparency is only going to help the Wagyu industry. If we lose the transparency, it's really hard to keep convincing people that this is amazing meat and the genetics are amazing, because they can't see where it came from, and they don't have the
Yeah.
proof. So having the proof is very important. So I love what you're doing
Exactly.
in Brazil, man. This is great. This is great. Well, did we forget anything about Wagyu in Brazil and South America that we need to share for everybody?
One thing that I think we missed,
Hmm.
most of the Wagyu produced here in Brazil are being produced through biotechnologies, biotechniques,
Okay.
especially IVF, in vitro fertilization, and
Mhm.
also superovulation protocols. Uh, the Wagyu is very good to produce embryos using superovulation protocols.
Okay.
The issue right now with the superovulation protocols is the cost that we have into buy
Yeah.
the hormone to superovulate those cows.
Okay.
So we are seeing a trend to start producing embryos using in vitro fertilization techniques.
Yeah.
Brazil, I think if you're going to compare all the countries that are using in vitro fertilization in cattle, I think Brazil is the number one
Really.
into producing embryos through IVF techniques. So we have very good laboratories, very good technicians that are doing a precise embryos that's helping us to get very good pregnancy rates. So most of the animals produced in Brazil is through IVF and embryo transfer, and we use recipients as other cattle breeds, Holstein, Jersey, Angus, Charolais, Hereford,
Yeah.
because one of the big problems that I see into the Wagyu animals, the cows, they don't produce too much milk. So that's a
Hmm.
big issue into the Wagyu. We are trying to fix that, doing selection into the animals that are going to have more maternal abilities.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Really. That's okay. So is that why you're doing that? Doing it that way? Is that why is it? Because why is it better to do it that way for Wagyu?
oh, because to produce embryos and put in the other cows, because Angus, they have an amazing maternal ability. Nelore
Yeah.
cattle also they produce good milk. They take good care of the cattle. The Wagyu mothers, the Wagyu cows, they take good care of the calves. However, they don't have too much milk for their
Really?
calves.
Is that just a genetic thing, or is that just
Yeah, I believe it's a
specifically in
genetic thing. Yeah,
Brazil?
I believe it is.
Really? Oh, okay. That's interesting. Okay. Wow. Well, thank you. Gosh, so
Yeah.
Dr. Ricardo Zanella, thank you so much for sharing all this and educating me and the audience on Wagyu in Brazil, because it's really cool. When I think of Wagyu beef, you obviously think of Japan, and then kind of in that fighting for second place is the United States and Australia. And then after that, you're hearing a little bit about South Africa, but I'm hearing a lot more about South America and Brazil, and so this is really cool to see it coming and the industry growing the way it is, and hopefully, yeah, in the next few years we see it boom even more, and you can start exporting, because it seems like it's a pretty nice area to raise Wagyu beef. You got a lot of space to be able to raise them out on that grass, just kind of like Australia. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, yeah. Well, geez. Well, yeah. Once again, we forget anything else that you want to leave the listeners before we get out of here? Because you've dropped a lot of knowledge on us. I love this.
No, I think we cover
Yeah,
lots of different things, different
we,
topics, and of
we did.
course, we never uh, uh, cover everything, but try I
Yep.
think to cover a little
Yeah.
bit, or especially the most important things about the Wagyu breed and Wagyu here in Brazil. So I
Yeah.
think
No,
we did good.
we did good. We covered a lot of great topics and we learned a lot, and I appreciate it. And how can people get involved with you? How can they find you if they want to reach out?
Okay, if you type my name is Ricardo Zanella into the Google, we're going to see
Mhm.
different websites, different papers. My email is Ricardo Zanella at UPF of University of Passo Fundo .br. So that's
UPF.
the
Cool.
.br. So that's my university through the university. So my email into the university. We have
Perfect.
a very good laboratory. We have students coming doing masters, PhD, and postdoc with me. We have a research line specific into the Wagyu cattle. That's something very interesting. I think I'm the only research in South America that destinate a specific line to study Wagyu meat, Wagyu
Wow.
nutrition, Wagyu management, and especially Wagyu reproduction. So today I have three students working with me, two PhD students and one master student. One PhD student working to understand the Wagyu market here in Brazil. One PhD student working to understand sexual precocity into the Wagyu cattle. And I have the third my master student try to understand more about the population structure and the lethal genes into the Wagyu population here in Brazil. So we are using the genomic database that we built here in Brazil to try to identify those genes that are being involved with lethality. But this is another topic for another time because this is a great
Deep.
study that you're
Yeah.
being conducting here in Brazil, identify genes that are associated with lethality. Right now, we found 13 genes involved with lethality into the Wagyu cattle that are never been uh, explored before. So
Wow. Yes. Well, you keep doing what you're doing because it sounds like you're on the tip of this, and I'm excited to keep in touch with you and to keep learning more. And I'll list your email in the show notes so everybody can see it if they want to reach out and learn a little bit more from you or help you out or do whatever you can. But this has been really great. I thank you again, Dr. Ricardo. We're always trying to learn everything about Wagyu all over the world, and you've helped us out a lot today, bringing this knowledge about South America and Brazil. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a good one. And we will talk soon.
you too, and thank you very much for this opportunity. Thanks, Arlie and Taylor, to introduce me
Yeah,
to you. So
they
that's
did.
how we are here talking today.
Yes,
And let's
good
let's
buddy.
talk soon. So thank you very much
Yes,
for the opportunity to talk a little bit about our work, our passion, and things that we are doing here in Brazil.
yes, I love it. This has been great. We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye bye.